And Global Affairs Analyst Joshua Onyenwere joins me on the news via Skype to discuss this. Good to have you join us, Joshua Onyenwere. Let's get your reaction to this latest development, in fact, escalation between Hamas and Israel.
Thank you very much for having me. Although many had anticipated this confrontation that is now playing out, however, what we are now witnessing is the Israeli state, which is the instigator, because of the sensitivity of the historical sites that the Israeli state wants to take away from the Palestinians and hand over to the Israeli occupants. So the Israeli state, who is the instigator, is now, seen or perhaps portraying itself as the victim, and the strategy is quite simple, and it has been consistent for decades, which is provoke the local Palestinian residents living within the occupied territory, and then respond with state might, knowing fully well that there will be retaliation from Gaza. And that is what has played out. And now we are witnessing this confrontation that could have been avoided.
Israel said it is trying to impose law and order after some protesters were found throwing stones, injuring some people in Israel. That's according to Israel. Do you think that this reaction coming from Israel is a proportional response?
It's certainly not. I mean, what do these people have? I mean, the Palestinians. What can they use, to defend themselves? I mean, you have the unequal legal landscape that favors the occupants and the Israeli regime against the Palestinians. I mean, why choose this time of Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan, to push for these policies of settlement expansion? This is not the time to do that. And like they say, a hungry man is an angry man. These people are fasting. They are in the time of prayer. And you have chosen this time to provoke, the Palestinians. So it's expected, unfortunately expected. And what we're seeing is just a fallout from the Israeli actions.
There is some sort of controversy or contention over the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Both sides see it as a holy site. Israel say it is a holy site. The Palestinians say it is a holy site. But let's look at, you talked about some level of you talked about policy earlier, but let's look at the Biden administration. We had Secretary of State Blinken calling for a two-state solution, calling for de-escalation. But we've also seen Democratic lawmakers that would have been sympathetic towards Israel now speaking against this recent move by Israel. What sort of balancing act should we expect from the Biden administration?
Well, what is currently happening is that things are gradually changing. I mean, the legal reality is also now against the Israeli regime. Recent events, has shown that there is an increasing global affirmation of the Israeli apartheid regime, and there are political support against Israeli state. In the past, this wouldn't have even occurred, but what we are seeing now is a pushback from people saying that, okay, enough is enough, which is contrary to what Israel had enjoyed in the past from the Western media. But yeah, things are changing now. There are lots of voices. International communities are calling Israeli, from UK, United States, Italy, Germany, EU itself, are calling for calm restraint and saying to Israeli, stop this policy of settlement expansion.
But let's also state there that Hamas is also launching rockets from Gaza into Israel. And many will tell you that, look, Israel also has a right to defend itself.
Yes. Which was what I stated earlier, that the instigator of the violence, the instigator of the confrontation, is now seen as the victim. I mean, why push for this policy at this time? There is a clear indication of intention of what the Israeli state wants to achieve. And the holy month of Ramadan is not the best time. And you had the policemen, blocking the entrance to the mosque. So these are clear, confrontation from the Israeli state, or clear provocation from the Israeli state. And now that the Gaza has responded, now Israel is the victim.
The Secretary of State, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, has called for a recognition of a two-state solution, which will recognize, of course, the Palestinian state and the state of Israel along the Jordan River. But when you look at the two-state solution, there are still boundary issues. So what exactly is the solution here if we do not have any side, any foreign power or any foreign country categorically saying, look, this is what we recognize? It looks like everyone is sitting on the fence and trying to be careful.
Yes. I mean, the consequences that we are witnessing is, a prolonged abuse of international agreement by the Israeli state. One way this issue, could be resolved is either through a genuine and profound international intervention to force both sides to negotiate, which you already mentioned, two-state solution, and a reasonable agreement that benefits, both sides. There is also an urgent need for enlightened political leadership that will commit, to this two-state solution. Israel, for decades, had abused this agreement, and now, the international communities can only, force the Israeli state to comply, but it's left to the political leaders within Israel to say to the regime that enough is enough.
We'll see how things play out in the coming days. Hopefully, we see some level of de-escalation. Global Affairs Analyst Joshua Onyenwere, thanks for talking to us always.
Thank you for having me.